Hi, thanks for joining us. I am Michelle Gordon with the Gordon Group, and today we're going to talk about back in the day, how it was to buy a house back in the day. And the purpose for this show is to show everybody how it once was and how it's not today, and to see the differences and have a little fun. And joining me today is Kay Courtney with Kay Courtney and Associates, and Terry and Steve with Lake Michigan Credit Union. So we are here at the lovely Heather Hills and Forest Hills home, and the residents here. We've just had lunch and we've been having fun, haven't we? How was lunch? Yeah. How was lunch? Was it good? Yeah. Panera Bread. You got a sugar rush from the cookies
Sure.
now?
No.
No.
The cookies I left for the little people.
Oh, okay. So each of you owned a home, right? Do you remember your first home? What was your first home like?
Our first home was a 3-bedroom. I lived in St. Joseph, a Cape Cod. We called them St. Joe Cape Cods. And it had 1 big bedroom upstairs and 2 smaller bedrooms downstairs, 1 bathroom, a kitchen and a living room, and a nice basement.
Did you finish the basements back then? Did they finish the basements
Oh, yeah.
back then?
Well,
Yeah.
No, but during the course of our ownership, which was about 10 years, we did finish off and make a room down there.
Oh, did you? What year was it that you owned your
We
first home?
bought it in '61.
1961. Those are my favorite homes. I love the homes built in
And
1961.
they still look very nice.
They
They're
do.
still in good condition. It was a solidly built house. It was a nice home, nice backyard. We had this wonderful row of red raspberries across the back. And we would get about 20 quarts off those red raz, and they were delicious.
Oh, that's awesome. So how long did you have to save until you could buy your first house?
Well, we had been married about 2 years roughly. We had a new baby, and we're living in a small apartment. However, there was more to the apartment than that because it overlooked Lake Michigan. It had a beautiful porch, and we could just watch the lake all the time.
How much was your rent back then?
Well, it was about half or less than that of anybody else's rent because it was the carriage house over the garage.
Oh, okay.
And it had 2 little bedrooms and a little living room and a tiny kitchen and a tiny bathroom, but it had that beautiful view.
Oh,
And
nice.
we paid $45 a month for that.
$45 a
45.
month. Can you
Most-
imagine?
Most apartments that we had looked at were $95 or more, but this one was $45, and the people never let it out to anybody else. They just told their friends that they had an apartment for rent, and we went out and looked at it and said yes, because it was a beautiful little apartment, and the price was what we could afford because we were both freshly out of school, and we didn't have any money anyway.
No, because you guys were lucky because a lot of people had to wait longer than 2 years to buy their first home. So you
And
guys
we
were
saved.
lucky. Yeah. How about your first house? What?
Well, we rented for quite a while because I had had a lot of medical bills and stuff, and so we rented, and as on this 3rd house we were rented, the owner decided to put a garage on for us, and so my husband and he, while they were working in the garage, came up with why don't you buy this house? Because he had built it for his daughter and she wouldn't live in it. It was cement block, had no basement. It was cement block all the way through. Every wall was, and I don't really remember how much we paid for
I was
it,
just going to ask you that.
but our mortgage was $179 a month.
Wow. And you struggled then, right? To
Yeah.
make that 179.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But
How
my
much was-
husband kept that because it was so low and paid off some other bills in the meantime that were, got more interest, and so
Sure.
it seemed like a long time before we paid it off, but
How long, well, weren't they still 30-year mortgages?
30 years.
They were still 30-year, yeah. So you had that $179 payment probably set up for 30 years.
Yeah.
Because they didn't do 15-year loans, did they?
They did, but they were far and few between.
Yeah, yeah, so everybody did the 30-year loan. And so, now, when you bought your first home, did your parents help you, or did you guys?
Nope, we did it on our own.
Yeah, and where did you live before you bought your first house?
We built our first house in, about 8 years later.
Oh, okay,
And,
okay.
we built a 2-story house.
And then did you live in there until?
Lived in there for 37 years.
I have to tell you, Amanda's of my favorite homes to sell, where they have that kind of love, and the family was there. And Amanda lives in a house now where she's only the third owner. And so they're always the well taken care of, well-loved home. Good juju, a lot of good juju. Where was your first house?
Well, we moved from Toledo, Ohio, and my husband wrote a note, well, to Grand Rapids Press, put an ad in, that he was looking for a house, and it made it a real fancy ad. Up and coming couple, just
Hey, we
was
should be doing that, be
embarrassing.
writing ads, and we're looking for a house.
It was before his
for-
time.
I know, right?
Well, he saw it first because his job got sent to Grand Rapids. And so he looked at it and didn't take a picture or anything and told him we'd take it. And so I never saw it when we pulled up in the driveway with a baby and went in. And a young couple it was brand new, a young couple had had it built, and they were like 18 when they got married. The parents gave them the money to take care of this house, and the marriage went within a year.
Oh, no.
And here's this brand new house. So she moved back with her mother and rented the house to us. And we were nervous because it was $90 a month rent. And, well, it was so much more than the
Jeez.
$65 we were paying. rent.
65, yeah, that was a big pot, yeah.
And then after a couple of years, she offered to sell it to us. And it made our house payment more, $97 a month, buying our own house. My mother did give us $2,000. That's what we needed, if we could give them to us.
So that would be the cost of doing that loan would be,
What was your husband's income at that time? Do you remember?
I can remember him saying his goal in life was to have a 5-figure income, which would be 10, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anywhere
about
from
10.
Yeah, $10,000.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Most-
wow.
Well, his income was probably $5,000 or less a month, or a year,
Can you imagine?
$450 to $500
And
a
he
month.
did have a little commission he would get with it. But we stayed there, and when we sold it, it was $16,000. We sold this lovely little well-built house, and we had built a single garage.
So you made money off the house?
Yes.
How long
I
did you
was
live in that
only
house?
interested in making it from month to month.
How long were you in that house? many
5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny. What about your first house?
Well, my wife and I bought our first home in Battle Creek, Michigan. She was from New York City,
Oh.
so it's a different set of expectations when you come from New York. And I was from St. Louis, Missouri.
You had to get her something fancy, is that it?
No, we did not. We did not. We said we're going to stick just with my income and nothing bigger.
Oh,
So
okay.
we bought a new house, but it turned out to be pretty darn small. It was a new development, but one story, no basement, very limited storage. That was a problem. So we should have gone a little bit higher. We should have done that.
But you put your foot down and that was it.
No, somebody put their foot down. I don't know who it was.
That's
So
funny.
we've
Do you
been-
remember how much you bought it for?
Oh, it's only like 12,000 or something like that.
$12,000. And did you have to get a loan for that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Doesn't everybody?
I don't know. Fancy wife and all. I just wasn't
No,
sure.
she was not fancy. She was very direct, very honest, and very practical.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Good. So, what do you remember most about that house?
Was too small. Beautiful house. Everything was new, 3 bedrooms and 2 baths and all that, but no storage at all. And 1-car garage, big mistake.
Now, was that the norm? When did they start putting 2 stalls on homes?
Oh, about that time, this would be in the,
Remember
late
that far back?
Yeah, late 1950s.
Yeah.
Mid-60s, early 70s.
Is that when they started
Yeah,
putting the 2 stalls
And then
on?
it became, and that made it more difficult to sell, too. People looking around say, 1-car garage? What's that?
We still have that problem with 1-car garage. It's still an issue.
And it wasn't attached either, was it?
Oh, no.
No.
Wasn't an attached garage, it was.
Yes, it was.
Oh, was it?
It was attached,
One of the few.
yeah.
One of the few.
Not that many people had two cars in the family.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
true, because most of the time one person stayed home and the other one worked, right? And so, and let's all face it, it was usually the woman that stayed home, and then,
If you saw a 2-car garage, you'd think, they must be rich, or they
Yeah.
got more than we have. Who did they think they are, a 2-car garage?
oh, wow, that's funny, I didn't even think about that. And now we have 3
Three,
and 4,
Yeah,
and
Yes, right.
we keep moving, my husband and
Pole
I, so he
barns.
can have more garage.
I got
Yeah.
a question. Were your houses, any of them brick? Or were
Yes, I was
Yours
all
was
brick.
brick.
Yeah, which was wonderful. I loved it. Beautiful rose-colored brick.
Masonry was big, is that the 60s? When was it that you bought?
Early 60s, yeah.
There must have been a mason that came through this area. We have some great brick
Yeah.
ranch homes that are built in the 60s that I think, are better than some of the new construction today. I think those homes are awesome.
I think people should look ahead a few years, though, if they're newlyweds.
Yeah.
They should
They
look
don't-
ahead a couple of years and say, hey, we didn't borrow any money except a rather modest mortgage. We should have gone bigger.
Yeah, so that's what Steve does, right? You help them look ahead, right? And
Yeah, that's
he
Sure,
wants
yeah.
them to borrow money.
I should have known you way back then.
Yeah, right.
You know, where were you when we needed you?
I wasn't even a glint in my mother's eye.
He's our millennial, but he's at the higher end of the millennial, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
Sure.
so where was
Getting
your
up in
first
age.
house?
Yeah.
Between Greenville and Cedar Springs, up by Lincoln Lake.
Oh my gosh, such a pretty area.
It was an old cottage, paid $1,000 down that I had in my bank before I went in the service.
How long did it take for you to save $1,000?
Took me 1 year when I was single.
Really?
Yeah, but when
Oh.
I was single before I went in the service.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right.
So we lived there 58 years.
Oh,
Good for you.
my
Wow.
gosh.
So-
That house,
Great.
8 kids later.
8 kids later.
You
So, and the
can do
same.
it. You
and-
can do
Steve's
I don't
having
know if I
babies.
can. I don't know if I can handle that.
Yeah.
Well, Steve is not having babies. His wife is having
Yeah,
babies.
we
Yes.
remodeled it about 16 times. 1 bathroom for 8 kids, can you imagine that?
No.
Oh, lucky.
No. Amanda's in
I
the
was go-
audience.
I was
One
off to work
bathroom,
before they
Amanda.
got up. Yeah.
So did you
Yeah.
did you ever
Right.
add on to the house?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, and then we remodeled the basement and, yeah. So,
How much did you pay for it originally, do you remember?
$6,000.
$6,000.
And how much was your mortgage payment?
$37. You got ripped off.
No.
We got it on land contract, yeah. we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so land contract was probably big back then, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You also called it seller financed. You
In-
said, right?
Seller held second mortgages.
Seller held
Yeah.
second mortgage.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't,
Oh.
the kids wouldn't take less than $150,000 for it right now. It's got a right of way down to the lake.
Well,
Yeah.
if they hold on to it a little bit longer, it'll be better because they'd open up a business in Greenville right now, a dairy farm.
Was
is
that
what they-
right?
Yep. Yeah, we'll talk later. So.
I might have a buyer.
You said you were there for 58 years?
Yeah.
And how long were you in your house?
about 20 years.
20 years, okay.
And where was your home?
Our first home was in a little town in western Pennsylvania, Latrobe, Pennsylvania. And
I don't know where that is. Where is
famous
it near?
people, yeah.
What big
It's about
town?
40 miles south of Pittsburgh.
Oh, that's right, we talked earlier. Yeah, we're the Philadelphia people, you're the Pittsburgh
That's
people. We
right,
don't
yeah.
like each other.
You're from the rich part of town.
Yeah, oh yeah, okay. My husband would disagree with that, but. Oh, that's
And
fun.
our first home was a prefab. Remember Gunnison Homes, US Steel?
Pre-built.
Yeah,
So they
Pre-cut
brought them and
in
put them
pieces.
in pieces and put them on the,
Yeah,
come in on a
they poured the
truck?
slab, yeah. And
My
my
first
husband
house came in
came
on a
home from lunch one day and said, they're building this new subdivision and the houses are gonna be $7,200. And you think we could swing it, cause so-and-so from the company and someone else from the company are buying houses. So we ended up with a little enclave, but the houses were there. They were set in the middle of the lot. I think it was probably February or March. Slope, no grass, no shrubs, no anything. We planted grass. My husband used to say we had the nicest looking gutter in the place because that's where the grass seed went. And
that was problems with new developments back then. They didn't plan for all
No,
that,
they
did they?
didn't.
No, I remember that, yeah, yeah.
And we borrowed part of our down payment from my mother-in-law. We paid her back monthly. But after 3 years, my husband was transferred to Ohio. So we put the house on the market. We paid 75, so we thought 78, that's pretty good. We had an offer, people were ready to buy, but the bank would not approve a mortgage of any more than 7,500 because those houses were all gonna, the bank officer said, they're all gonna float down the hill and they're not gonna be around. So we broke even, which,
Well, what would be the difference between $75,000 loan and $78,000 loan?
Hundred, not
Hundred.
thousand.
Oh,
Hundred.
hundreds, yeah.
Hundred,
That's
sorry.
That's
Yes.
a big difference.
Big difference, yes, 7,800, 7,500, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. So he was willing to let, 300 less fly down the
Yeah,
river,
but-
but not, okay.
yeah.
That would probably be our equivalent to the appraisers today.
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, okay.
and we've been back several times, and those houses are on beautiful tree-lined streets, and they look as good as they did the day we bought them.
And they
So-
didn't float away.
They didn't float away, no.
Oh, that's so funny. What do they sell for now? Do you know?
No, I have no idea. I'd guess 100,000 maybe.
I bet. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Probably
that's
right.
crazy, right? That's funny. You said your first house was a
National Homes from
Yeah.
Fort Wayne, Indiana.
wow.
Came in on a semi.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Flatbed semi. It was so fun to watch it.
Yeah, we
go
waited
up.
and waited for those trucks to come.
No
So those were
basement.
known to be very well constructed homes.
Yeah, and it was brick.
No, ours was
But
not
yeah,
brick.
it was brick, it was real brick, but it was made in the factory.
So
I
from
don't
what
know how
I
they did
understand,
that.
my engineer husband has told me, from what I understand, that actually is in the right company making those homes, and yours probably was because they're still standing. They were actually in a controlled environment and better homes. They were able, think about the homes that you make out on the lot, and now you deal with the snow, or you deal with the rain, or you deal with this, and if you didn't seal this right away, maybe some water got in there. When you are building them in the factory, it's a much more
Well, we had no
controlled environment.
basement
No.
and, cement floors, cement walls with that brick facade on the outside. And, the garage was attached. It was a one-car garage,
It was attached.
and it was attached.
How much did you pay for your first home?
I can't remember. But it was not very much. It was the late 50s.
Was it?
Not
Ours
very
was the
much.
early 50s.
And it was a
51.
wonderful
51.
house.
How long did you live in your house?
3 years.
3? Oh,
Yeah.
you moved fast, so
Yeah.
Well, my husband was transferred, so.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. How long did you live in your first house?
Same thing, only we didn't sell it. We
Oh.
kept it and rented it and moved back into it when we're from Indianapolis. And we went to Minneapolis for 3 years, and we came back and kicked the people out and moved back in their house.
Can't do that today either.
Is that realtor speak?
What about your first home? Do you remember it?
Yes, it was out in Jenison
Oh, nice.
in the 1963, and I paid way too much. I can hear that now. We paid.
You don't want to tell how much you paid for it, do you?
We paid $15,250.
Oh, see, tell him he got ripped off, didn't he?
I ripped off.
Yeah.
And it was a 3-bedroom ranch with dining room, living room, family room with fireplace upstairs and a full lower level, the length of the house with a fireplace downstairs.
Oh,
you got
deal.
Oh, yeah, he got a lot of house.
You got a deal there.
He was the rich guy, wasn't he? Yeah.
Janice.
Oh, man.
But even then, when I was not in the mortgage business, just starting out in working in a business, we went to the bank, and the same thing. The banker decided how much you were going to mortgage your house for. You did not have appraisals, and you could state your income and state your assets, and they would take that for the word and do a mortgage for you.
Well, we were talking about that because sometimes people didn't get a paycheck, they got paid under the table. Yeah, well, they didn't even call it under the table then.
Under the table cash.
Yeah, under the table cash. And people would just, and so there was no documentation. I mean, when we lived out in Pennsylvania, we lived around a bunch of Amish, and their money was in the barn, you know? They would put it in the, and so.
Banks.
No, they wouldn't put it in the banks, and so a lot of the people didn't even have a credit rating. So when did they really start looking at credit ratings?
I didn't know what one was.
Yeah.
Depending on what you were doing, like if you were in, I was in a small loan business at that time, and we did credit ratings at that time, but it was more for cars and small loans,
Not your home loan.
Not your home loans.
When's the first time you guys heard that, you know, you had to, when you bought a house, they had to check your credit? Do you remember hearing that at all?
No.
No.
Isn't that funny? Where was your first house?
Well, that was right after, no, a couple years after the war ended, World War II. And the wife, when the war ended, she rented a real nice, what do you call these houses that they're the same on the second floor?
Condo?
This is in the first
A
floor.
condo?
Duplex.
No, not a
Duplex.
condo, up above.
Up and down
Yeah.
roads.
Duplex.
And
Townhouse?
we had one baby, and she had to do her washing in the basement and hang her clothes in the attic and carry those clothes 3 stories. So when the second baby started to come, we figured maybe we better do something. And
You'd already done
we were
it.
Too late.
My brother and his wife at their church heard of somebody that wanted to sell their house. And we looked at it, and it was a really nice house, a Dutch colonial that this couple had built, no children, and they just took immaculate care of it.
Oh.
And it was a really nice house, 3 bedrooms, but not an attached garage, one in the back. And they wanted $9,500 for it.
Wow.
Yeah, lots of
But
money. Yeah.
What
lots
We
of
year
didn't-
was that?
Huh?
What year was that you
It
bought?
was right about
48.
90, we put it 17,
Not after the,
47,
47,
right after the war.
47, 48.
Wow.
Yeah, couple
Yeah,
years
47,
after
48.
that.
There was a lot of money for
That
a
was
house
a
for
lot of
that
money.
year. that
Where was it?
time.
Where
Well,
was your
it
house?
was in the north end,
North End?
north of Knapp Street.
Oh, see, he was in where all the rich people lived. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. But, we didn't have a down payment.
Oh, how'd you buy it?
Well, this couple took a liking to us, I guess, and they said to us, well, I think maybe their sister would finance it for us. So we bought it on a land contract.
So did VA exist back then?
No.
Because both
No.
of you guys were in the
No.
service, so they didn't
Yeah,
have a
but-
VA
Yeah.
loan back then?
They did, I
They
didn't know
went back-
about it.
Yeah, they just went back to FHA, really.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, so it
but
wasn't a,
yeah.
it wasn't a thing. When did VA become a
In the
good deal?
early mid-sixties.
Or, because my husband and I, we bought our first home on VA,
Yeah.
because he was in the Army,
What year
so.
was that?
And so, let's see, we got married in '89, so it was '89 or '90.
Oh,
We bought
yeah.
our first house, and we bought a bank-owned home that had been a VA-owned home too, on a VA loan, and we bought it for $26,000. And, our interest rate was 11%. Yes, and that was a good deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had good credit. It was a good deal.
Oh,
And
we-
it was, yeah, and I was pregnant with Amanda. And we had 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, and the basement was not finishable. And it was what we call, it was in Pennsylvania, they called them duplexes back then, side by side, you know. And it was a brick home, and it was in an up-and-coming neighborhood. And my husband he was very proud, so we had to live through renovations. He was not gonna live with my parents or anybody else. And I was pregnant. And I had to go down to Hardee's to use the bathroom because the bathroom was being renovated.
Not good.
Spent a lot of time there.
The Hardy people and I knew each other really well.
And you guys stayed together.
And we, yes, our best arguments were
You
home
tell your
renovations.
husband that our considered opinion is that he's a jerk.
We'll let Amanda do that. He was just a very proud man. I didn't realize when we bought that house that we weren't staying in our apartment until he could get it halfway done. And he told me, no, I did not extend the lease, we're moving in. And I went, oh. So, and then when he was renovating the kitchen, I had to cook on an ironing board with the electric frying pan.
Yeah.
And I had to make 1 meals while we were doing that. But he did it, and we bought the house for $26,000, and we sold it for $55,000 in a year and a half.
In a year and a
And
half?
it was worth it.
Yeah,
Oh,
in a
that's-
year and a half.
But you
And,
were paying 11% interest in the meantime.
yes, yes. And so our payments was much more than you all. I think our house payment was like $350 or something, $350 a month, and we struggled to make that work.
Yeah.
We struggled, you know, like, I can remember my husband telling me, we only have $50 in the bank for this month, you know, make it last. And that was it. And I think it's so funny now, because when you do budgets with people, it's not like that, is it?
No.
No,
But-
not even close.
Well, things cost more, obviously. So but they're also making a lot more income. So
You know, when I started selling real estate in '84, we were celebrating because interest rates had come down to 12.
12%.
Yep. Isn't that crazy?
1982, they were 15 to 18%.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine? Well, yeah, you can. I just can't even, that's just crazy, you know, and you have people complaining about maybe 5%,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, when the rates go up, comparatively to what people are used to back in the day, if you will, the rates are a lot lower nowadays.
They
So-
are.
Oh,
How
yeah,
was it
yeah.
for the pre-approval? What did you guys do?
Again, we would look at what their income was and what their payments were going to be and add them up and see what else. Groceries were $5 a week in those days. That was different
Yeah.
for a family then, a family of 4 then versus a family
How
of
much was
4
your
today.
grocery bill, Mr. 8 Kids?
Usually around $200.
For a month, $200?
not for a week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can't get
Outside of a
van
year.
full for 25.
I know, you can't. I was trying to think, yeah.
I had $20 a week.
That was your
Spent
budget,
it
20
For the
bucks?
groceries, and that was for everything.
When you say everything, you mean like cleaning supplies and
Yes.
everything?
When you went to the grocery store, you bought all that stuff, and you brought it home, and it better fall within the $20, because that's what I had. And my husband and I usually went together, because we only had one car. But we did manage to save some money from each week's groceries, so we were saving a little bit more.
Oh, that's good. How many times did you go out to eat a week?
We didn't.
No.
Did anybody go out to eat?
No.
No.
So was going out to eat a big deal?
Oh, yeah.
Very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, so how about the movies?
The movies were not that expensive,
no.
but we didn't do that either.
Drive-in.
You did the drive-in?
Yep.
You take all the kids and go to the
Yeah.
drive-in?
They
Make your
always had
popcorn
a
before you
kids'
went.
movie
Yeah.
Yeah, you
first.
made your own
A
popcorn.
big bag of
and took it,
popcorn,
yeah.
took that way, and,
Otherwise, you had a babysitter to pay for. I mean, that was
That
extravagant.
was.
Was it?
Babysitter,
Yeah.
each, 50 cents an hour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How
That
many,
is a lot of money, actually, if you think
one
about it.
question I have is, how many of the households, when you guys bought your first house, had two incomes?
Oh, yeah.
Where both
No.
people were
No.
working?
Oh, no.
Not that many.
See,
really.
yeah.
We didn't.
You
Yeah.
did, Sandy? You had 2 income?
You had 2 incomes?
For a short time,
Yeah.
and then I had more medical problems.
What did you
What?
do?
I worked in office.
Did you? Office?
My wife didn't like working in an office very well. She worked, of course, before we were married. But then, at that time, when I went in the service, if you enlisted, the telephone company, I worked for the telephone company, they made a job for your wife.
Oh.
And so she went to work for the telephone company. She worked there until a little over 3 years while I was in the service. And my story, I've taken a long time to tell my story, but when we docked, and after a little better than 3 years overseas, we came into Texas. And when I got off the ship and went to land, and I called her, and I said, well, when are you going to quit? She says, well, I've already quit.
You went, oh, well. There we go. What's your fondest memory in your home? What do you remember that you love so much? Anybody?
It was home.
It was home.
It was home. And, there were so many things that happened. We lived in our second house for 42 years. So that was home too. But one of the things that we had in our neighborhood, the second house, have you ever heard of the Sears homes?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
very much so, yes.
There were
One.
2
Yes.
of them across the street.
Really?
And people would come along and take pictures of them, and they were made of steel on the outside, and then the shelving and things like that on the inside were also steel.
Weren't they originally made for people that were coming home from the service because they were
Before
very?
them,
It
before
was,
them.
oh, was
That
it before
yeah,
then?
and I think it was
Yeah.
1930s, I'd say.
Oh, okay.
I know
Okay.
of 2 of them in Grand Rapids, and I've always thought the press ought to do an article and say, come on, folks, tell us if you've got a Sears house.
Yeah.
Isn't there one over right outside East Grand Rapids? And-
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, because that one's been up for sale. I've been selling for 16 years, and that one's been up for sale in my career. I've seen that one. I have seen that one.
There's
People
one
don't
on
know
the-
what to do with it because it's so different, but it's a cool house. There's another one over by Riverside Gardens, too. Yep. the one over there.
Yes, that's probably the other, it's a great big 2-story.
Yeah, they were big, huh?
In the
But
middle
in
of
a
a
way,
block.
they were the first prefabs because they shipped
They
all the
shipped them in
materials.
on a truck.
They did,
Yep.
they did, and they're still standing. Look at that. Those
Yeah.
are cool. What else, what other memories do you guys have of your homes?
Family celebrations, big time.
Yeah, and if you didn't have space, you just made space, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's where I think the kids' table came in, right? Because
Yeah.
you didn't have enough at the table, so then you had the kids, like kind of where you're sitting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly what I was thinking.
One of the,
I'd love to give him a hard time.
one of the things that I remember most, I think, as you're talking about meals and stuff, is, of course, I'm a little bit older than all the rest of you here, but, was
Come on.
we all sat down to have dinner together.
Every
Yes, we
evening,
did.
yeah.
It was a family. And today, you know, the
Yeah.
kids are all involved in sports and everything, and we don't have that connection anymore.
That's a
That's
major
what
So I
problem.
think it's sad.
Major.
Yeah.
It wasn't the house that mattered, it was the home, right?
Yeah.
Right, what you
Didn't
did
matter
with it.
where you were.
Yeah.
Very true.
I do have one memory that I thought was hilarious. It was in our second home. And my dad was a very large man. And my folks went to Alaska for their 50th anniversary. We all got together and sent them to Alaska. And my family, my son-in-law and daughter-in-law and the kids, and we were all sitting around the dining room table. And suddenly everything started to shake. We were having a slight earthquake.
Oh, wow.
And my son-in-law said, "Oh, Grandpa's plane must have landed."
Oh, that's so funny.
That, I could just see those lilac bushes out there doing
just
this, and my
shaking.
crystal was shaking in the cabinet,
Oh, no.
and everything was shaking, and it was so funny that the tears ran down.
See, I like those memories. Sometimes today people are in and out of their houses so fast, it's hard to make those memories, and I think that's important to have those.
I
And
remember
so-
my parents actually going out in the street and burning the
The mortgage.
the mortgage
Oh,
to the,
yes.
to the house, and I didn't, went right by me. I'm a teenager and what's the big deal? They're acting so silly outside in front. And then they told me that they paid $3,200 for this house that we all lived in for, my folks are 25, 30 years. But it had reverted to the bank during the Depression. And the bank couldn't get rid of it, and they were having a hard time. So they decided to come in and paint it, and hardwood floors, fix those all up beautifully, wallpaper, and here's my mother with 2 tiny kids and wanting to get out of an apartment. Oh, Bob, this is beautiful. You don't have to do a thing, just move it, and which was it was 2-story, 3-bedroom, had an old garage, well, it was too small for cars of those days already.
We
And-
have houses like that now
Yeah.
that we can't fit cars into because of the big SUVs and things like
But
that.
they didn't
Yeah.
have any
Yeah.
money. And so they, it was $3,200. Someone loaned them the 200.
Oh, okay.
No, something like that. But that's as far as everybody they asked. No one had any money. And my dad had an aunt that told him that she had money. She had taken it out of the bank.
See,
And
that's a
gave
secret.
them
Yeah.
$1,000. And that's what got them going. And then they made monthly payments back to her.
See, now, if we would ask, if you were getting money from a family member now, it's a big deal. We have to get, a
Gift
paper
letter.
trail and a
Yeah.
gift letter, and you're not allowed
Yeah.
to do that anymore. That's not, no. So do you remember going and applying for your first loan? Do you remember what that was like?
Yeah, that was.
Why would a woman do that?
Well, there you go.
That's
That's
right.
why the women didn't do that, did they? But the men did,
The
right?
men
Yeah.
did.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and did you consult with your wife about the loan, or did you
Of
just?
course.
Oh, well, very good. I'm very happy you did that. Somehow I don't know that you're telling me the truth.
No,
but-
that's the
Oh.
truth.
No, you did. Okay, good.
You know,
Our
I
realtor
do
actually got us,
remember.
What?
our realtor actually found us the rate for our first loan.
See, that's what I want, see, we didn't go to, back then, you guys didn't go to the lender, right? The realtor did everything,
The
didn't
realtor
they?
did everything, yeah.
Because
She was good.
even though I'm younger than you guys, still back in my day, when we bought our first home, the realtor did everything. You sat down with your realtor, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And now, did you go to the bank or did you go to the realtor?
Realtor.
You went to the
And-
realtor?
And then to the bank,
And now, was your realtor a man or a woman?
woman.
What was, do you remember? Woman?
I had a woman, but the man who owned the realty company was a man. And interestingly, when we went to sell it 10 years later, he came in to look at it. We were with a different realtor at that point. And he came in to look at it, and he said, "Oh, my, you fixed this up very nicely." So he remembered 10 years later what the house had looked like.
That's when real estate was very, very local, wasn't it?
Yes.
Very, very local.
Yes.
Yeah. Because
We
you didn't.
have a realtor.
Oh, you didn't? So it was just a handshake between you and the,
Owner and my husband, and then we went to the bank, or you did.
did you go to the bank with your husband or you didn't?
No,
No, so your husband went. Did he consult you on the finances or did he do it on his own?
he did it on his own and told me afterwards that how much it was.
And you trusted him?
Yeah.
Not today.
Steve says that because
Back
his wife
then.
doesn't let him do anything on his own.
I wouldn't trust him today.
But yeah, so that's funny. Did you go and get the loan for yourself or did
No, I cussed every banker out.
you cussed every banker out?
Because I had 5 kids at that time, and I said, why don't you just tell me the reason you're not gonna give me this money is 'cause I got 5 kids. He says, that's the truth. So,
Oh,
walked
Isn't
out
that
of there.
crazy?
Can't discriminate like that today.
Yeah.
No, not any.
What do you think they were worried about with 5 kids?
You may have enough
Income,
money.
Now
to
we're
make
doing- Having enough
income
money.
and
Expenses,
ability to make the
expenses
payment.
probably, right?
Yeah.
Building.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's funny. Do you guys take consideration dependents when you do the loan application now?
Not really, debt to income ratio is what you take out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a spot on the application to mark dependents, but I don't think that it necessarily does sways things one way or another, so.
No.
It has,
Yeah.
it's more of a government regular requirement.
Can you opt out of answering it?
Not on that one, you can't.
Not on that one, no. That's interesting,
Not
that's
on that
interesting.
one.
How many of you still own the home that you once had? Everybody's, yeah? How was,
Several since that one.
Wait,
how was your last sale compared to your first purchase? What,
Our last sale was easy.
was it?
Yeah, it took 2 days.
Really?
Mine took 24 hours.
Look at
Yeah.
that.
ours did, we've sold 1, 2, 3, 4 houses. And they all,
Just boom?
we never did put them in the hands of a realtor.
Oh, you never did?
No,
You were always the for sale by owner guy.
yeah, well, we sold,
You
well,
don't like that.
I know, I don't know. Why is he
we
here?
sold. Well, just by word of mouth.
Yes.
Your neighbor would say, well, they knew somebody that would like that house.
How did they advertise? How did you guys find the house that you wanted to buy? How did you advertise, Kay, back in the day when you first started?
You know, I have a totally different life than anybody here. My father-in-law was a politician, a judge, best friend of the governor, and a millionaire. And we never did anything. We just said, we like this house. And we paid for it, but we never had to worry about all this
The
kind of
details.
Yeah.
stuff, because he just did it for us. Who needs a realtor when you got a judge?
Yeah.
I would never know that about you. Kay is one of the hardest working women I know. I would never know that. So that's interesting. As long as I've known you, I've never known that.
Our experience was different, though. The last house we sold was a condo in Michigan, and it was an uncertain market. Uncertain. You know, we had some idea, but uncertain. We found a realtor. She was bright. Oh my gosh, was she smart. And, you know, a couple of days and it was sold. And I think it was, a lot of it was due, she knew exactly what it should be priced at and what kind of people would want to be interested in.
Yeah. She knew her demographic, she
just
knew her
She
marketing.
just knew her
What year was that?
about 3 years ago.
Oh yeah, we were hot back then too.
That's when the market was hot.
That's when we
Yeah.
just started to turn. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This year's gonna be
Well,
difficult.
this market would be hot if we had any houses.
Yeah.
Yeah, in this town,
I was
yes.
gonna say, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sales
Okay, when did you
Go
start
down. Yeah,
selling
but
homes?
There's not enough houses.
33 years ago,
Okay,
84.
so what kind of advertising were you doing back then?
Oh, the press.
The press?
Newspaper.
Oh,
I was
but
a
it's
realtor
all
many years.
gone.
Were you a
God.
realtor too? I
In
didn't know
Ohio-
that.
In Ohio.
In Ohio. So how long were you a realtor?
Oh, my, 10 years maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
But we moved to the slums of Dayton, Ohio. It was old houses, and we eventually had it declared a historic district. But in the meantime, there were derelict houses, and they were really derelict. We were living there, so I was the only realtor that was concerned at all. And I used to take my dog with me to scope out the empty houses, because you didn't know who was going to be sleeping in there.
Really?
Kate can relate to
Yeah.
that.
Listen, I tell people I am a better actress than anybody you ever knew because I've talked myself out of a lot of
It's amazing,
stuff.
you can do it.
Heritage Hill in 1984 was,
My grandkids live
Scary.
there
That was
now.
bad, yeah.
are they?
Yeah.
That's where, I've sold 400 Heritage Hill houses.
Our district wasn't that big, but I sold houses for 20,000 and resold them for 150.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine, in the 80s, our houses were in the 30s, 40s, maybe 50s. Now they're in the 300s, 400s,
Yeah.
and often the 600s.
Yeah.
Tell me about your home inspections back then. Did you guys do home inspections?
They were required, weren't they?
I don't know.
No.
Were they? No.
Well, if you,
They are now.
for a mortgage,
Well, no, appraisal is required, not a home inspection.
a home inspection.
Home inspection. Did you guys have someone come out and check the house before you bought it?
Oh, we did on one.
Did
And-
you?
And, it was like a raised ranch, and you entered downstairs, right off the garage, or up the front of the house, those were the two places. And, when he came through, he said that I had to have a different door, an egress door, a solid door that went into the garage, not
Fireproof,
an indoor
Fire.
type of door.
2-hour fire rating.
Yes, and also something about, this was a house that was only a year old,
Oh,
but a second owner. And they had something to do with the fireplace. It had to be examined or checked for something.
that's when they started putting the linings in, I
Right.
bet.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
there
yeah,
was
that's
some-
when they
yes,
started
I
doing
remember
that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
because I know we didn't get our house inspected when we first bought ours. You
And that was a
know?
VA loan, right?
That was a VA loan. We didn't have to get it inspected or anything. The
The
second
buyer had-
house, we did
seller
the first VA
had to
loan
pay
and the
for
second,
that.
we did VA twice. And then the second one was in the 90s. We just held my husband got recruited, so we only held the first house for about a year and a half. And then the second house, we did a VA loan, and they were just starting to really weigh hard on the appraisals. And so we had to fix things for it to pass, but my husband fixed it, and it really, it was whatever.
But the fireplace that you had to have inspected was for the creosote inside.
Yeah.
Because in those years, not that far away, you burned mostly wood.
Yeah.
Gas fireplaces were non-existent at that time.
Right,
And
right.
now, wood fireplaces are almost non-existent today.
Right.
Now they are. I know, no one wants to mess with them. So we only have a few more minutes, but how many of you helped your kids buy a house? that have kids. I don't know if you all have kids, but
Didn't help.
didn't help?
No,
No,
No.
They didn't.
They didn't need it.
no, they
So-
didn't need
They
it.
didn't need it.
yeah.
Yeah.
They need it because you taught them to save and to,
That's right.
yeah,
And the
One was-
economy was better too. I
Oh,
think.
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I'm thinking
Yeah,
of
'cause-
grandkids.
Oh, I might, when, the first place we had and rented, our apartment rent was $38, $39 a month. And I was making $14 a week.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
After I'm close.
Can you remember way back when you first used a Realtor? How much did you charge?
6%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
okay,
you think that's
yeah.
about what
That's
you
Yeah.
about-
remember?
Yeah,
6%,
We were
6
7
and a
for a
quarter.
while,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
and then
We got our first mortgage for 6 and a quarter. People later on said, wow,
Your interest rate was 6 and a quarter?
yeah,
What year?
61,
That was unheard of.
61.
Did you know a couple of politicians too?
And our mortgage had come through an
Wow.
insurance company at the time. And then everything changed and changed and changed, and then it became a bank.
Did they sell mortgages back then?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, more so then
Yeah.
than now?
We started with Prudential, and I can't remember who we ended up with, but it
Really?
had changed twice.
Yeah.
And then one house we lived in the longest.
So that stayed the same.
Yes.
That stayed the same. And then did they always have appraisals?
No.
No,
No.
no. So there was no appraisal, no home inspection, kind of an application, but not really.
Yeah.
When did they start appraisals?
Mid-70s,
Huh?
Yeah, I guess.
mid-70s.
So when they rolled those out, what did you guys think about those?
Didn't have it, so it didn't make
We
any
never-
difference.
Yeah, we never had anything to do with appraisal.
No?
No.
We
No?
What was the buyer side?
So you didn't have to worry about it?
yeah. the
A
buyer's
home
side, yeah.
inspection, a home inspection would have been valuable for us with our first house. We were so naive, young. And we moved into this house, had a terrible time getting the people out. They simply did not plan to move on time.
We call them squatters.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's just about what it was.
Yeah.
Because they were building a house and it wasn't finished. And, well, they weren't ready to move. And meanwhile, we're living in this little two-bedroom apartment, and they're living in a three-bedroom house. And they didn't plan to move. And she said, oh, we'll pay your rent. And I said, no, you'll pay the first house payment,
That's different, yeah.
which they did.
Mhm.
But then they weren't going to move anyway, and we were going into winter. And we had a baby, and it was, well, we said we are moving in on Friday night. And when we arrived, they were sitting down to dinner. And we said, your refrigerator's gonna have to move because ours is going in here. And your stove comes out, and we put it in there, and they scattered around and got some clothes together and got the rest of their stuff out of there, and we started painting.
Good for you.
Yeah, good enough.
And that was the only way we could get them out, but we did find out that they had a history of doing this. They had done it 2 other times.
Oh, that's usually the case.
You know, that brings up a good point. When you guys bought and sold, do you remember occupancy? Did you have occupancy at closing on every
No.
transaction?
They
Or
were
no?
different.
Were they
Okay.
different?
30 days or,
Different.
In Ohio, it was understood that you had 30 days.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. That's a big negotiation now,
Yeah, it
is
was.
possession.
Yes.
Most
exactly.
sellers
Yeah.
are.
We negotiated all of that.
Negotiated all that.
Yeah, we sold a house in Saginaw that, on the condition that we'd be out in 2 weeks.
Yeah. There you go. How long did it take to close a loan back then?
Oh, I can't remember.
time.
Do you remember now? You can't
I don't
remember?
remember anymore.
Not long?
Not long.
30 days, a month, but there was less paperwork at that time.
Yeah.
So you didn't
And they
use-
handled everything inside, right?
Right.
It's interesting. All right, I think our time is up. We've extended, but I want to thank everybody. You want to have any last words? Anything else?
No, I just sold one in the Hill that's closing in 21 days. It's cash, it's in terrible condition. And I am absolutely amazed. It's in my block, which is the best block in the Hill, of course, I live there. Can you imagine? She's paying cash, 21 days, and it's gonna take her, well, it took me 2.5 years to get mine in shape. It's gonna take her months and months with contractors,
It is.
and she's got a lot of cash.
Well, she's got the
The
money.
moral of the story, cash is king.
Thank-
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, if she needs
Okay.
a loan, you know a couple guys that can help her.
Yeah.
Thank you guys, everybody, so much. This
Been
was
fun.
fun.
Thank you.
This was a lot of fun. I
What
hope I
street
brought
do
back
you
some
live
good
on?
memories.